Sophie Taylor stared at the contract on the screen, her fingers frozen above the keyboard. $200,000. The exact amount that would save her aunt's home from foreclosure. All she had to do was pretend to be her boss's wife for one Christmas weekend. Simple. Except for the clause that made her blood run cold. If genuine romantic feelings develop between either party, this contract will be immediately terminated, and the financial compensation will be forfeited. Ryan Lawson stood beside her, his jaw tight, his eyes unreadable. Sign it, Sophie. But remember, you can never fall in love with me. Christmas Eve, and the office was a tomb of silence. Sophie sat at her desk in the executive suite, the only light coming from her computer screen and the city skyline beyond the windows. Everyone else had rushed home hours ago to families and festivities. She'd volunteered to stay late. Anything was better than her empty apartment, where the holidays just amplified the loneliness. Her phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Margaret. Bank called again. Foreclosure proceeding. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Sophie closed her eyes. $200,000. That's what they needed. That's what she'd never have on her administrative assistant's salary. You're still here. She jumped. Ryan Lawson stood in his office doorway, tie loosened, looking more human than she'd seen in 2 years of working for him. At 36, he was the youngest CEO in the company's history. Brilliant, ruthless, unreadable. Just finishing reports, Mr. Lawson. It's Christmas Eve. Go home. I don't have anywhere to be. The words slipped out too honestly. Something flickered in his eyes. Neither do I. He walked to the window, hands in pockets. My family expects me home tomorrow, to their Connecticut estate, for the annual Lawson Christmas. Sophie had heard about the Lawson family. Old money, impossible expectations. That's nice, she said carefully. It's not. They expect me to bring my wife. He turned to face her. I'm not married. The silence stretched. My mother's threatened to use her board shares to force me out if I don't produce a spouse by Christmas. She believes a man in my position needs the right image. His jaw tightened. I need someone to pretend to be my wife for one weekend. Christmas Day through the 26th. 3 days. Sophie's heart pounded. Mr. Lawson, I'll pay you $200,000. The world stopped. What? $200,000. Transferred the moment we return. He pulled out his phone, showed her the screen. I know about your aunt's situation, the foreclosure. This solves your problem completely. Heat flooded her face. You investigated me? I investigate everyone close to me. It's not personal. But his voice suggested otherwise. This would save your aunt's home, Sophie. She stood, legs shaking. You want me to lie to your family? Yes. Why me? Because you're smart, composed, you adapt. He hesitated. And because I trust you more than anyone in my life. The confession landed between them, fragile and dangerous. Sophie's mind raced. $200,000. Aunt Margaret could keep her home, get the medical care she'd been postponing, and stop worrying. But 3 days pretending to be married to Ryan Lawson? There would be rules, Ryan said. A contract, everything professional. What kind of rules? He pulled a document from his drawer, already prepared. First, complete confidentiality. Second, you learn enough about me to be convincing. He paused. Third, no genuine romantic feelings can develop. If they do, the contract is void. You forfeit the money. Sophie stared. You're afraid I'll fall in love with you? I'm afraid we'll both forget it's pretend. His voice was rough. I can't afford that complication. Neither can you. She should refuse. Walk away. Find another solution. but $200,000. What happens after? She asked. You transfer to our Portland office. Promotion, better pay, fresh start. We'll barely see each other again. So he'd planned her exit, too. Sophie looked at his face. Tired, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. For all his power, he was trapped just like her. If I do this, I want everything in writing. Payment terms, timeline, transfer details. Relief flooded his features. Legal will draft it tonight. And I want to know the real reason you're doing this. Ryan was silent. Then, because I'm tired of being alone. Even if it's pretend for 3 days, I want to know what it feels like to have someone choose to be there. Even if it's for money. The honesty struck her. Okay, Sophie heard herself say. I'll do it. Ryan's shoulders dropped. Thank you. But this is business, Mr. Lawson. Nothing more. I won't catch feelings. Agreed. He extended his hand. We have a deal, Miss Taylor. His palm was warm against hers. The touch lasted too long, both frozen between professional and something else. When they pulled apart, Ryan gestured to his computer. Legal will email the contract within the hour. Read it thoroughly. We leave tomorrow at 8. Tomorrow? That gives us the drive to Connecticut to get our story straight. He picked up his jacket. Pack for a hostile estate with people who'll try to tear you apart. Bring your armor. After he left, Sophie stared at the falling snow, wondering what she'd agreed to. Her phone buzzed. Email from legal. Subject, confidential services agreement. She opened it with shaking hands. The contract was there. Clinical. Devastating. $200,000 for 3 days. The clause about feelings stated back. Should either party develop genuine emotional attachment, the contract shall be breached, all compensation voided. Sophie thought about her aunt, about the home that had sheltered her through childhood. She thought about Ryan by the window, admitting he was tired of being alone. Her cursor hovered over the signature line. Outside, snow covered the city in white. A fresh start. Sophie clicked. Agreement accepted. Signed, Sophie Taylor. Date, December 24th. Her phone buzzed. Ryan, see you at 8. Bring your ring size. She typed back. Size 6. 3 dots appeared. Sleep well, Mrs. Lawson. The name sent a shiver through her. Mrs. Lawson. For 3 days. That would be her identity. Her lie. As Sophie rode the elevator down, she couldn't shake the feeling she'd signed away more than 3 days. She'd signed away the possibility of ever looking at Ryan Lawson the same way again. Sophie barely slept. She spent Christmas morning packing, trying to decide what a billionaire's wife would wear. Everything in her closet looked wrong. Too cheap. Too simple. At 7:45, her phone buzzed. Ryan. Downstairs. The black town car looked like something from another world. Ryan stood beside it in dark jeans and a sweater, more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. More human. Good morning, Mrs. Lawson, he said with faint amusement. Sophie's stomach flipped. Don't call me that yet. You need to get used to it. He loaded her suitcase. 3-hour drive. Plenty of time to become convincing newlyweds. Inside the car, Ryan pulled out a velvet box. You need this first. Sophie's hands trembled as she opened it. A platinum ring with a perfect diamond caught the light like scattered stars. It's beautiful, she whispered. It was my grandmother's. Ryan's voice was quiet. She was the only family member who loved me without conditions. Just love. Sophie looked up. Ryan, I can't wear this. It's too important. You already are. He took the ring and reached for her left hand. May I? She nodded, speechless. His fingers were warm as he slid the ring on. It fit perfectly, as if made for her. Sophie stared at the weight of metal, the false promise it represented. "There's a backstory," Ryan said, not releasing her hand. "We met 2 years ago when you started. Kept it professional until 3 months ago." "What happened 3 months ago?" "We were working late. I kissed you." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "You kissed back. Everything changed." The story was good, detailed, almost believable. "We married a month ago at City Hall," Ryan continued. "Secret. Just us and witnesses. My family would have destroyed it before it began. You're not from the right background, the right social circle. So we kept it hidden. And we're telling them now because I'm tired of lying. Because I want them to accept the woman I love." His eyes met hers with devastating intensity. "When we're with them, I'm not your boss. I'm your husband, completely in love with you. And when we're alone, we remember it's pretend." But his voice lacked conviction. Ryan pulled out his phone. "My mother is Barbara Lawson, 62, former debutante, permanent judge. My father died 5 years ago, a heart attack at his desk. Very on brand for a Lawson." Sophie took notes. "My sister Julia is 32, married to Preston. She resents me because I got the company. She got a trust fund." He scrolled. "My favorite color is navy, coffee black. I hate jazz but pretend to like it. And I've been in love once before." Sophie's head snapped up. "What?" "Rebecca. College sweetheart. My mother approved. Old money, right pedigree. We were engaged." His jaw tightened. "She left 2 weeks before the wedding when she realized I wanted to build my own empire, not live off family money. Married a hedge fund manager 6 months later." "I'm sorry. It taught me that love is a luxury I can't afford. Everyone wants something." The bitterness made Sophie's chest ache. "Is that why you added the feelings clause?" "I'm afraid if we're not careful, we'll both forget this is business. And when it ends, because it will, someone gets hurt." "You think it would be you?" "I think it would be both of us." He looked out the window. "That's why we need boundaries. A clean exit." The van turned onto a private road, lined with snow-covered trees. "We're almost there," Ryan said. "Remember, you're my wife. The woman I chose over family approval. You're not intimidated by their money. You're here because you belong with me." The Lawson estate appeared around a curve, and Sophie's breath caught. It was a stone manor that looked transplanted from England. Turrets, terraces, enough windows for 30 rooms. Christmas lights wrapped every surface, elegant and excessive. The circular drive held luxury cars worth more than Sophie's annual salary. "Welcome to my prison," Ryan said quietly. The car stopped. Ryan got out first, extending his hand to help Sophie. The moment she stepped out, she felt eyes watching from the windows. "Stay close," Ryan murmured. "Don't let them separate us." The front doors opened. A woman appeared at the top of the steps. Barbara Lawson was exactly what Sophie imagined. Tall, elegant, silver hair and a perfect chignon. Her cream dress probably cost more than Sophie's car. Her smile was polite and cold. "Ryan, darling, you're late." "Traffic, mother." Ryan's hand found Sophie's, gripping tight. "And I wanted Sophie to see the house in daylight. Her first Christmas here." Barbara's eyes catalogued every detail. The off-the-rack coat, department store boots, nervous energy. So this is the mysterious wife. Barbara descended with practiced grace. "How unexpected." "Mother, may I present Sophie Lawson? Sophie, my mother." Sophie extended her hand. "Wonderful to finally meet you, Mrs. Lawson. Ryan speaks of you often." Barbara's handshake was brief, cold. "I'm sure he does, though apparently not often enough to mention a wedding." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Come inside. The family is eager to meet the woman who convinced my son to commit the ultimate betrayal. Ryan's jaw tightened. It wasn't betrayal. It was a choice. Same thing in this family, darling. Barbara turned toward the house. Same thing. Sophie looked up at Ryan, seeing tension in his shoulders. Last chance to run, he whispered. Not a chance. She squeezed his hand. We're in this together. Something shifted in his expression. Gratitude, or something more dangerous. Together, he repeated. They walked into the estate, hand in hand, carrying a lie that felt more real every second. As the massive doors closed behind them with a resonant boom, Sophie couldn't shake the feeling she'd crossed a threshold she could never uncross. The game had begun. The entrance hall soared 3 stories high, dominated by a massive Christmas tree that looked like it belonged in a shopping mall. Everything was perfect, untouchable, cold. Your luggage will be taken to your room, Barbara said, already moving deeper into the house. The family is gathered in the drawing room. I trust you're prepared for questions, Sophie. We Lawsons are quite thorough when vetting new additions. Sophie is my wife, Mother, not a job applicant. Of course, darling. Barbara's smile was sharp. But surely you understand our curiosity. The drawing room was all dark paneling and leather furniture. 4 people looked up as they entered, their collective judgment like a physical weight. Everyone, may I present Ryan's wife? Barbara's pause was deliberate. Sophie, this is the family. A blonde woman by the fireplace had to be Julia, beautiful in a calculated way, designer dress, pearl necklace. Her eyes raked over Sophie with unconcealed disdain. So it's true. My brother married his secretary. Assistant, Sophie corrected, lifting her chin. And yes, we're married. The man beside Julia, Preston, barely glanced up from his phone. An older couple on the sofa looked kinder. Uncle Thomas and Aunt Carolyn? Ryan said, his voice warming slightly. Wouldn't miss it, Thomas said, shaking Sophie's hand. Though I'm surprised. Ryan's kept you quite hidden. We wanted privacy before making announcements, Sophie said smoothly. With Ryan's work demands, that was important. How convenient, Julia said, circling Sophie like a predator. Tell me, Sophie, what do you see in my brother? Besides the obvious financial benefits? Ryan stepped forward. Julia? It's okay. Sophie met Julia's eyes. I see a man who works harder than anyone I know, who built something real instead of coasting on a name, who makes me laugh when I don't want to, who looks at me like I'm the only person in the room, even when people are trying to tear us apart. The last part was aimed at Julia. Julia's smile was venomous. How poetic. Rehearsed much? Julia, that's enough. Barbara's voice cut through. We're family now. Let's pretend to be civilized. Dinner was served in a room that could seat 30. The food was exquisite. Roasted duck, truffle potatoes, and vegetables that probably cost more than Sophie's weekly budget. But everything tasted like ash. So, Sophie, Barbara said, precisely cutting her duck. Tell us about your family, your background. Here it was. The interrogation. My parents died when I was 8. My aunt raised me. She was a teacher. We didn't have much, but we had each other. How tragic. Barbara's sympathy sounded rehearsed. And your education? State University, business administration. I worked 3 jobs to pay for it. 3 jobs. Julia's voice dripped false admiration. How industrious. It taught me the value of hard work, Sophie replied. Something money can't buy. The pointed silence spoke volumes. Ryan, how's the Singapore deal? Thomas asked, clearly trying to ease tension. Ahead of schedule. Should close by January. Without your father's guidance, Barbara said. I worry about your decision-making lately, between Singapore and this unexpected marriage. My decision-making is sound, Mother. Ryan's voice was tight. In business and in life. Is it? You married in secret, Ryan, without family, without prenuptial agreements, without considering how this affects the company or your board position. I married the woman I love. Everything else is secondary. Love, Barbara said it like something distasteful. Your father loved me. But he understood that love is a luxury we can't prioritize over duty. Maybe that's where Father went wrong. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Barbara's smile was ice. How dare. Excuse me. Sophie pushed back her chair, voice shaking. I need air. She fled from the dining room, navigating blindly until she found a terrace overlooking snow-covered gardens. The cold air hit her like a slap. That was subtle. Sophie spun. Julia stood in the doorway, wineglass in hand. I'm sorry. I just needed... Don't apologize. Mother has that effect. Julia stepped outside, closing the door. You handled yourself better than I expected. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. Julia studied her. You're not what I expected. I assumed a gold digger, but you actually care about him. Sophie's throat tightened. Of course I do. That's a mistake. Julia's voice softened. Loving someone in this family is a liability. Mother will find your weaknesses, your aunt, your job, and use them to control you. That's what she does. Ryan warned me. Did he warn you she'll try to pay you to leave? She did it to Preston's first fiancé. The girl was smart enough to take the money and run. Julia's smile was sad. I'm telling you as a courtesy. Get out while you can, Sophie, before this family destroys you. The door opened. Ryan appeared, face tight with concern. Sophie, are you all right? Fine. Just needed air. Julia raised her glass. I was just welcoming your wife to the family, brother, sharing sisterly wisdom. Julia, Ryan's voice held warning. Relax, I wasn't terrorizing her. Much. Julia moved toward the door. See you tomorrow. Mother's put you in the master suite, by the way. Her little test. She disappeared inside. What did she say? Ryan asked, hands on Sophie's shoulders. That your mother will try to pay me to leave. Ryan's jaw tightened. She won't get the chance. And that loving you is a mistake. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain or recognition. She's not wrong. Ryan, come on, it's late. We should get to our room. The master suite was enormous. A 4-poster bed, sitting area, and windows overlooking the estate. Their luggage was already placed precisely. It's beautiful, Sophie whispered. It's a trap. Ryan closed and locked the door. 1 bed, 1 bathroom, no privacy. Mother's way of testing if we're real. Sophie's pulse quickened. So what do we do? We play our parts. Ryan pulled off his jacket. You take the bed. I'll take the sofa. Ryan, that sofa's too short for you. I've slept in worse places. He grabbed a pillow. Maintaining the illusion stops at sharing a bed. That wasn't the deal. She watched him settle onto the too short sofa, his feet hanging off. This is ridiculous. The bed is huge. No. His voice was firm. Because I'm barely holding it together. Every time I touch your hand or stand close or pretend to be your husband, I forget it's pretend. If I share a bed with you, I will cross a line we can't uncross. The confession hung raw between them. Good night, Sophie, Ryan said, turning away. Try to sleep. Sophie changed in the bathroom, and climbed into the enormous bed. But sleep wouldn't come. Around 2 a.m., she heard it, a sound from the sofa, a whimper, then desperate words. "Please, I'm sorry. I tried." Ryan was having a nightmare. "Dad, please, I'll be better." His voice was a child's, pleading, afraid. Sophie threw off the covers and moved to the sofa. Ryan was curled up, face twisted in anguish. "Ryan," she whispered, touching his shoulder. "Wake up." He jolted awake with a gasp, eyes wild. "Sophie?" "You were having a nightmare." Ryan sat up, hands shaking. "I'm sorry, didn't mean to wake you." "Don't apologize. Want to talk about it?" "No." But his voice lacked conviction. They sat in silence. "He was never satisfied," Ryan said finally. "My father. Nothing was ever good enough. I kept trying to make him proud. Then he died at his desk, and I realized he'd never been proud. Just disappointed I wasn't him." Sophie took his hand. "I'm sorry." "The nightmares started after he died. Him telling me I'm failing. That I'm not worthy." "You're not failing." "How would you know?" "Because I've watched you for 2 years. You built something real, something yours. You're not a disappointment, Ryan. You're exactly who you should be." He looked at her, tears in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. They sat together, hands intertwined, both pretending this was still about the contract. But Sophie knew better. Something had shifted. Some walls had fallen. As Ryan drifted back to sleep, his head against her shoulder, Sophie understood what Julia meant. Loving Ryan Lawson was dangerous, and she was already halfway there. Sophie woke to sunlight and the realization she was still on the sofa. She'd fallen asleep with Ryan, their hands intertwined. Sometime during the night, he'd draped a blanket over them both. His head rested against hers. Breathing deep and even, for a moment she let herself pretend this was real, that she was waking beside the man she loved on Christmas morning. Then Ryan stirred, and reality crashed back. "Morning," he murmured, voice rough with sleep. "Morning." Sophie pulled away, missing his warmth immediately. "We should get up before your mother sends someone." Ryan checked his phone. 8:30. Breakfast in 30 minutes. He looked at Sophie, something soft in his eyes. "Thank you. For last night." "You don't have to thank me." "I do. You stayed. That's not in the contract. Maybe not everything needs to be." Their eyes held too long, both dancing around what they weren't supposed to feel. Sophie broke first. "I should get ready." After breakfast, another elaborate affair that felt more like a performance than a meal, the family gathered for gift opening. Designer bags, expensive watches, jewelry that sparkled, everything beautiful and hollow. Sophie and Ryan had nothing for each other. But as the unwrapping continued, Ryan leaned close. "Meet me in the library after this. I have something for you." "Ryan, we didn't plan. Just meet me." An hour later, Sophie found him in the book-lined library. A fire crackled in the fireplace. Ryan held a small wrapped package, looking nervous in a way she'd never seen. "I got you something. I know we didn't discuss it, but I wanted you to have this." Sophie's hands shook as she unwrapped it. Inside was an old, worn book. She gasped. "The Little Prince, first edition. You mentioned it once, months ago. You said it was your favorite as a child, that your aunt read it to you. I remembered." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "Ryan, this must have cost." "It doesn't matter." He moved closer. "You're doing this for your aunt, sacrificing for love. I wanted to give you something that reminded you why that matters." She opened the book. On the first page, in Ryan's handwriting, "For Sophie." The most important things are invisible to the eye. R. I can't accept this. You already have. He smiled that rare, real smile. Consider it a Christmas bonus. I didn't get you anything. You gave me something no one else ever has. What? You saw me. Not the CEO or the heir, just me. The person is having nightmares and pretending to be fine. That's worth more than any gift. Sophie pulled a folded paper from her pocket. I did get you something. I just didn't think it was good enough. Ryan unfolded it and went completely still. It was a charcoal sketch, the view from their balcony last night. Snow-covered gardens, bare trees, the moon hanging low. Simple but detailed, capturing loneliness and beauty. You drew this? His voice was thick. Last night, I couldn't sleep. I found paper and charcoal on the desk. It's not much. It's perfect. He looked up, something devastating in his expression. No one's ever made something for me before. Everything I've received has been bought or expected. But you made this. For me. I used to sketch when I was younger, before life got in the way. What were you thinking about while you drew this? You. The truth slipped out. About how lonely this place must have been growing up. About how you turned out kind despite everything. Ryan set the sketch down carefully. Then he pulled Sophie into his arms and held her. Not for show. Not for cameras or family. Just held her. Thank you, he whispered against her hair. This is the best gift anyone's ever given me. Sophie melted into him, arms wrapping around his waist, feeling his heartbeat. This was dangerous territory. This was breaking the rules. But neither pulled away. A knock made them spring apart. Mother wants photos, Julia said from the doorway, though it looks like you're making your own traditions. After awkward family photos, Ryan suggested a walk. I need out of this house. Come with me? They bundled up, and Ryan led her through the gardens. The grounds were vast, with winding paths through frozen beauty. I used to hide here as a kid, Ryan said. Especially after bad days with my father. There's a gazebo by the pond. My grandmother would meet me there. She understood. She sounds wonderful. She was the only one who told me I was enough. When she died, she left me her ring, the one you're wearing. My mother tried to take it for the vault. But grandmother's will specified it was mine to give to someone I truly loved. Sophie looked at the ring, its weight suddenly heavier. Ryan, I know what you're thinking, that giving it to you is a lie, but I can't think of anyone I'd rather see wearing it, even if it's just 3 days. They walked in silence, snow crunching underfoot. What was it like, growing up here? Lonely. Father is always working. Mother is always socializing. Julia and I were raised by rotating nannies. We learned early that emotions were weaknesses. That's heartbreaking. It's survival. He looked at her. Until you start wondering what you're surviving for. Before Sophie could respond, her foot caught on a hidden root. She went down hard, ankle twisting beneath her. Sophie! Ryan caught her before she hit completely. Pain shot through her ankle, sharp and immediate. I'm fine, she gasped, but when she tried to stand, she cried out. You're not fine. Ryan carefully lifted her into his arms. I'm getting you back. Ryan, I can walk. You can't, and I'm not arguing. His voice was firm, but his touch was gentle. Sophie had no choice but to wrap her arms around his neck as he carried her. She could feel his heart beating, smell his cologne mixed with winter air. His face was close to hers. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so clumsy. Don't apologize. He looked down, their faces inches apart. Are you in pain? A little. I'll get you ice, whatever you need. The tenderness was undoing her. This wasn't acting. This was real concern, real care. Ryan carried her straight to their room, ignoring Barbara's questions. He set her on the bed, propping her foot on pillows. Then he returned with ice wrapped in a towel. This will help the swelling. He placed it gently on her ankle. I'm calling a doctor. Ryan, it's Christmas, I'm fine. You don't know that. But he sat beside her instead. Can you move it? Sophie rotated her ankle slowly, wincing. See? Not broken? You scared me. His hand rested on her leg, warm and solid. When I saw you fall. I'm okay, I promise. They sat in silence, Ryan's hand still on her leg. Both aware they were alone in a bedroom with feelings rising to the surface they couldn't control. We're breaking the rules, Sophie said softly. I know. We should stop. Remember what this is. I know. But Ryan didn't move. Tell me to leave, Sophie. I can't. Why not? Because I'm falling for you. Because I don't want you to, she said instead. Ryan's hand moved to her face, cupping her cheek. This is a mistake. I know. We're going to regret this. Probably. A sharp knock. Ryan, Sophie. Barbara's voice. Dinner in 30 minutes. We'll be there, Mother, Ryan called. They listened to her footsteps retreat. Ryan pulled his hand away, the loss almost painful. We can't do this, he said. If we develop real feelings, you lose everything. Your aunt loses her home. You're right. Tomorrow's the party. It's going to be intense. I'll be ready. With your ankle? I didn't come this far to let a sprain ruin everything. Ryan studied her. You're remarkable. I'm just surviving your family. You're more than surviving. He trailed off, shaking his head. We should get ready. He helped her to the bathroom, hands careful and professional. But as Sophie changed, she caught her reflection. Flushed cheeks, bright eyes, a smile she couldn't suppress. She looked like a woman falling in love. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. The Lawson Christmas party was a spectacle. By 7 p.m., the estate was filled with Connecticut's elite, women in designer gowns, men in tailored suits, champagne flowing like water. Sophie sat in a chair near the grand ballroom's edge, her ankle elevated, watching the performance unfold. She felt like Cinderella after midnight, the spell breaking, revealing her for what she was, an imposter in a borrowed world. Ryan had been pulled away immediately by business associates and family friends, though his eyes kept finding her across the room. Each time their gazes met, something passed between them that had nothing to do with their contract. Quite the ankle you've got there, a voice said. Thomas sat in the chair beside her, kind eyes twinkling. Ryan's been looking at you every 30 seconds, counting down until he can escape back to you. Sophie felt her cheeks warm. He's just being polite. My dear, I've known Ryan since he was born. I've never seen him be polite about anything. Thomas sipped his champagne. He looks at you the way his grandmother looked at his grandfather, like you're the only real thing in a room full of beautiful lies. Before Sophie could respond, Ryan appeared with a plate of food. You haven't eaten, he said, setting it on the table beside her. And you're not drinking enough water. How's the ankle? Better. Really, I'm fine. You're not fine. You're sitting alone while everyone else... Ryan, I'm okay. Go network. Do the CEO thing. I'll still be here. He crouched beside her chair, his hand finding hers. I don't want to be out there. I want to be here. With you. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Ryan Lawson, hiding in the corner? Barbara's voice cut through. She appeared with Julia and Preston in tow, champagne flute in hand. How unlike you, darling. Bring Sophie to the center of things. People are curious about the mysterious wife. Sophie's ankle. It's fine, apparently, Barbara said, having clearly overheard. Come, both of you. There are photographs to take. Ryan's jaw tightened, but he helped Sophie to her feet. She leaned on him, trying not to wince as they made their way to the ballroom's center, where a photographer waited. The next 30 minutes were torture. Posing, smiling, making small talk with people whose jewelry cost more than Sophie's yearly salary. Her ankle throbbed, her head pounded, but she held Ryan's hand and played her part. "Oh, how perfect!" Julia's voice rang out suddenly. She appeared above them, holding something green and familiar. "Look where you two are standing." Sophie looked up. Mistletoe hung directly over their heads. The crowd around them quieted, watching, waiting. "Family tradition," Julia announced, eyes glittering with malice. "Kiss under the mistletoe or face 7 years bad luck." "Those are the rules." Sophie's heart hammered. This was a trap. Julia was testing them, trying to catch them in the lie. "Julia," Ryan's voice held warning. "What's wrong, brother? Don't want to kiss your wife?" Julia's smile was venomous. "Unless there's something you're not telling us?" The crowd pressed closer. Phones appeared, ready to capture the moment, or the refusal. Ryan turned to Sophie, and she saw an apology in his eyes. They had no choice. "I'm sorry," he whispered, too low for anyone else to hear. "Don't be," Sophie whispered back. Then Ryan's hand cupped her face, and he kissed her. It started as a performance, a show for the watching crowd. But something shifted the moment their lips met. Ryan's hand slid into her hair, pulling her closer. Sophie's fingers clutched his jacket, rising on her toes despite her injured ankle. The kiss deepened, becoming something real and desperate and absolutely not pretend. The crowd cheered, but Sophie barely heard it. All she could feel was Ryan, his mouth on hers, his hand at her waist, the way he kissed her like she was oxygen, and he was drowning. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, the room erupted in applause. But Sophie couldn't look away from Ryan's eyes, seeing the same truth reflected there that was burning through her. This wasn't acting anymore. "Lovely," Barbara said, voice tight. "How convincing." The crowd dispersed, moving on to the next entertainment, but Ryan's hand stayed on Sophie's waist. "Library," he said quietly. "Now." They escaped through a side door, Ryan supporting Sophie as she limped. The library was empty, fire crackling softly. The moment the door closed, Ryan turned to her. "That wasn't supposed to happen." Sophie's heart raced. "I know." "That kiss. Sophie, that wasn't pretend." "I know." They stared at each other across 3 feet of carpet that felt like a chasm. "We broke the rules," Ryan said. "The most important rule. We developed feelings." "What do we do?" "We honor the contract. You walk away. You forfeit the money. I void the agreement." His voice was rough. "Or we lie. We pretend for 1 more day, go back to the city, and never speak of this again." Sophie thought about her aunt. About the home she'd lose if Sophie walked away now. About the medical treatments Margaret needed. She thought about Ryan's nightmare, his vulnerability, the way he'd looked at her before that kiss. "1 more day," she whispered. "We can pretend for 1 more day." Relief and regret warred in Ryan's expression. "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm not ready to say goodbye yet." Ryan moved closer, his hand reaching for her face, then stopping. "If I touch you again, I won't be able to stop." "Then don't touch me." "Sophie." "Tomorrow's the last day," she said. "We get through tomorrow. We say goodbye to your family. We drive back to the city. You transfer me to Portland. We go back to being strangers. We'll never be strangers. Then we go back to being professionals. Boss and employee. Nothing more. I don't think I can do that. You have to. We both do. Ryan's hands clenched at his sides, every line of his body screaming with tension. One more day, then it's over. Then it's over, Sophie agreed, the words tasting like ash. They stood in the library, 3 feet apart, both knowing they were lying to themselves as much as to each other. The kiss had changed everything, and tomorrow, when they walked away from each other, they'd both be leaving pieces of themselves behind. Outside, the party continued. Laughter and music and the clink of champagne glasses. But in the library, 2 people stood in silence, counting down the hours until they had to pretend their hearts weren't already broken. Sophie and Ryan stood at a crossroads that so many of us face, when the safe choice and the right choice pull in opposite directions. Have you ever had to choose between protecting your heart and taking a leap of faith? What would you do in Sophie's position? Let us know in the comments below. The final morning arrived with crystalline winter sunlight. Sophie woke in the enormous bed, alone. Ryan had spent the night on the sofa again. Maintaining distance neither of them wanted, but both knew was necessary. Her ankle felt better, still tender, but bearable. Today was the last day. Tomorrow she'd be in Portland. Ryan would be in New York. And this beautiful, terrible lie would be over. Breakfast was quieter than previous meals. Barbara watched them with calculating eyes, as if she'd finally solved a puzzle she didn't like the answer to. "You're leaving today?" she asked, knife cutting through her grapefruit with precision. "We have to get back," Ryan said. "I have meetings tomorrow." "Of course." Barbara set down her knife. "Sophie, a word? In the conservatory?" Sophie's stomach dropped. Ryan's hand tightened on hers under the table. "Mother." "It's fine," Sophie said, though her voice shook. "I'll meet you after." The conservatory was glass-walled, filled with winter light and expensive orchids. Barbara stood by the windows, her posture perfect. "I owe you an apology," she said without preamble. Sophie blinked. "Excuse me?" "I've been difficult, unwelcoming. I convinced myself you were after Ryan's money, his position, that you couldn't possibly love him for who he is." Barbara turned, and something in her expression was almost human. "But I watched you at the party. That kiss wasn't a performance. The way you look at him when he's not watching, that's not something money can buy." Sophie's throat tightened. "Mrs. Lawson—" "Barbara, please." She moved closer. "My husband made our marriage a business arrangement. Successful, yes, but cold. I raised Ryan the same way, with contracts and expectations instead of love. I see now what that cost him. He's an incredible man. Because of you, perhaps." Barbara pulled an envelope from her pocket. "This is for you. Not a bribe, as my daughter predicted I'd offer, but a gift. From one woman who loves Ryan to another." Sophie took the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a check for $10,000 and a note. "For your aunt's medical treatments. Family takes care of family. Barbara." Tears filled Sophie's eyes. "I can't accept this." "You can and you will. That's what family does." Barbara's smile was sad. "Take care of him, Sophie. He pretends to be strong, but he's more fragile than he knows." Sophie could only nod, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Her phone buzzed as she left the conservatory, a text from an unknown number. "Mortgage payment received in full. Your aunt's home is secure. First National Bank." Sophie stopped in the hallway, staring at the screen. The money. Ryan had transferred it early. Despite them breaking the rules, despite the feelings, he'd kept his word. She found him in their room, packing. "You paid already," she said. Ryan looked up. "The contract terms were met. You fulfilled your obligation." "But we broke the rules. We developed feelings." "That was my risk, not yours. You get paid regardless." His voice was carefully neutral. "Your aunt's home is safe." "Ryan, don't." He zipped his suitcase with more force than necessary. "Please, let me do this one thing right." Sophie wanted to argue, to refuse to throw the money back, but she thought of Aunt Margaret, of the home saved, of treatments she could finally afford. "Thank you," she whispered. Ryan's jaw tightened. But he said nothing. They said their goodbyes in the entrance hall. Julia hugged Sophie. A real hug, not the air kiss Sophie expected. "You're good for him," Julia whispered. "Don't let him push you away completely." Thomas and Caroline were warm, extracting promises to visit that Sophie knew she'd never keep. Barbara's goodbye was formal, but kind. "Welcome to the family, Sophie. Truly." Then they were in the car, driving away from the estate, and Sophie felt her heart breaking with every mile. Ryan drove in silence, his jaw tight, hands gripping the steering wheel too hard. The snow-covered countryside passed by, beautiful and meaningless. 20 miles from the city, Ryan suddenly pulled off the highway onto a scenic overlook. He parked and turned off the engine. "I need to say something," he said, staring straight ahead. Sophie waited, barely breathing. "The Portland transfer, I'm canceling it." Ryan's voice was rough. "You can stay in New York. Keep your position. We'll figure out how to work together professionally." Sophie's heart leaped and shattered simultaneously. "Ryan, I know we said we'd go back to being professionals, but I can't lose you completely. Even if I can only see you at work, even if we can never—" He stopped, jaw working. "Please, stay." Sophie closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I'm in love with you." The confession broke free, raw and honest. "And seeing you every day, pretending we're just boss and employee, watching you with other people, knowing what we could have been, that would destroy me. Slowly, completely." Ryan's hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. "I love you too," he said quietly. "I think I have, since you stayed with me through that nightmare. Maybe before. Then you understand why I have to go. Stay anyway. We'll figure it out." "How?" Sophie turned to him. "Your board won't accept me. Your mother will always wonder if I'm good enough. And you'll always question whether what we have is real or just leftover pretend. I won't do that to either of us." "So that's it? We just walk away?" "We walk away," Sophie agreed, her voice breaking. "Clean. Final. Before we hurt each other more." Ryan's hand reached for hers, fingers intertwining one last time. "I don't want to let you go. I don't want to be let go." Sophie lifted his hand to her lips, kissed his knuckles. "But sometimes love means knowing when to stop before you ruin something beautiful." They sat in silence, hands clasped, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. Finally, Ryan started the car. They drove to Sophie's apartment without speaking. Ryan carried her suitcase to her door, the weight of goodbye heavy between them. "Portland office opens January 2nd, he said. "I'll handle the transfer paperwork." "Thank you for everything." Ryan's hand lifted to her face, almost touching, then falling. "Goodbye, Sophie." "Goodbye, Ryan." She watched him walk away, back straight, shoulders rigid, watched him get in the car, watched him drive away until the taillights disappeared. Then Sophie went inside, closed the door, and finally let herself fall apart. The contract was complete. The money was transferred. Her aunt was saved. And Sophie had never felt more lost in her life. Portland was beautiful. Sophie stood in her new apartment, larger than her New York place, modern, overlooking the city, and felt absolutely nothing. The promotion came with a significant raise. The office was sleek and professional. Her new colleagues were friendly. Everything was perfect. Everything was hollow. She'd been there a week. 7 days of going through motions, smiling at the right times, pretending the hole in her chest wasn't consuming her from the inside out. At night, she read The Little Prince until the words blurred. Looked at Ryan's note on the first page until her eyes burned. Remembered the way he'd kissed her under the mistletoe like she was air, and he was drowning. Her phone never rang with his number. She didn't expect it to. They'd made their choice. Clean break, professional distance. It was the right decision. So why did Wright feel so devastatingly wrong? "You look miserable," her new coworker Maya said over lunch. "Bad breakup?" "Something like that." "Want to talk about it?" Sophie shook her head. What could she say? That she'd fallen in love during a fake marriage to her billionaire boss? That she'd walked away from the best thing in her life because she was too scared to fight for it? That night, Sophie called Aunt Margaret. "The house is beautiful with all the repairs," Margaret said, her voice warm. "The new furnace is a godsend. And I started those treatments. The doctor says we caught everything early. Sophie, sweetheart, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me." "Are you all right? You sound sad." Sophie's throat tightened. "I'm fine. Just adjusting to Portland." "You're lying. What happened with that nice boss of yours, Ryan? Wasn't it?" Sophie had told her aunt a carefully edited version, that she'd helped Ryan with a family situation, that he'd been generous with her bonus. "Nothing happened. We're just in different cities now." "Sophie Catherine Taylor, I raised you. I know when you're heartbroken." The tears came without warning. "I fell in love with him, Aunt Maggie, and I walked away because I was afraid." "Oh, sweetheart." "He offered to let me stay, to figure it out. But I was so scared that what we had wasn't real, or that his family would tear us apart, or that I'd wake up one day and realize I was just the secretary playing dress-up in his world. And now? Now I'm in Portland wishing I'd been brave enough to try." Margaret was quiet for a moment. "You know what I learned when your uncle died? That regret is heavier than risk. I'd rather have tried and failed than spent my life wondering what if. It's too late. I left. He hasn't called." "Have you called him?" Sophie hadn't. Couldn't. What would she even say? That night, she pulled out the sketch she'd drawn for Ryan. She'd made a copy before giving him the original. She traced the lines of the snow-covered garden, remembering the weight of his head on her shoulder, the vulnerability in his voice. The phone rang. Her heart leaped. But it was just Maya, inviting her to drinks with the team. Sophie declined and spent another night alone with her books and regrets. Across the country, Ryan wasn't doing any better. His penthouse had never felt more like a prison. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, whiskey in hand, staring at the city lights and seeing nothing. 2 weeks since Sophie left. 14 days of pretending to function, of board meetings and conference calls and business decisions that all felt meaningless. His assistant, an efficient woman named Patricia, who was perfectly competent and absolutely not Sophie, kept giving him concerned looks. "Mr. Lawson, you have the Singapore team in 15 minutes. Cancel it." "Sir, this is the 3rd meeting you've canceled this week." "Cancel it, Patricia." She left, and Ryan returned to his window. His reflection stared back, hollow-eyed, exhausted, lost. He'd done the right thing. Let Sophie go. Given her the escape she needed. The money, the promotion, the distance. It was what she'd wanted. Except it wasn't what either of them wanted. He'd been a coward. Convincing himself that letting her walk away was noble, when really he was just too afraid to fight for her. Too afraid she'd realize he wasn't worth the complications his life would bring. His phone buzzed. "Barbara, are you coming for New Year's? We miss Sophie." Even his mother had fallen for her. Ryan didn't respond. He wandered through his penthouse, restless and aching. Found himself in his study, where he'd brought work home every night for 2 weeks and accomplished nothing. That's when he saw it. The sketch. Sophie's drawing of the estate gardens. He'd framed it, hung it beside his desk where he could see it while working. Now he stood in front of it, really looking. She'd captured something in those charcoal lines. Not just the physical beauty of the place, but the loneliness, the isolation, the way privilege could be its own prison. She'd seen him, really saw him. Not Ryan Lawson, CEO, not the Lawson heir. Just him. And he'd let her go. Ryan pulled out his phone and opened his messages, scrolled to Sophie's name. Their last conversation was on December 27th. "Made it to Portland safely. Thank you for everything." He'd typed and deleted 100 responses. Finally settled on. "Good luck with the new position." Professional, distant, safe, coward. His finger hovered over her name now. What would he say? "I miss you. I was wrong. Come back?" Before he could decide, his phone rang. Julia. "You sound terrible," she said without preamble. "I'm fine." "You're a liar. Mother says you've been impossible. I say you're in love and too stupid to do anything about it." "Julia, where's Sophie?" "Portland." "And you're in New York because she wanted to go. Because it was the right thing. It was the cowardly thing." Julia's voice was sharp. "She loved you, Ryan, really loved you, and you let her walk away because you were afraid." "I gave her a choice. You gave her an out. There's a difference." Julia sighed. "For once in your life, Ryan, stop thinking about what's appropriate or expected or right. What do you want?" The answer came immediately, devastatingly clear. "Her. I want her." "Then go get her." Ryan looked at the sketch again. Remembered Sophie's hands drawing it while he slept. Remembered her staying through his nightmare. Remembered the way she'd kissed him like he was worth breaking rules for. "I have to go," he said suddenly. "Where?" "Portland." Finally. Julia's smile was audible. "Go get your girl, big brother." Ryan hung up and pulled up flights on his phone. The last flight to Portland leaves in 3 hours. He could make it if he left now. He grabbed his coat, his keys, and his phone. Texted Patricia. "Cancel everything for the next 3 days, emergency." She responded immediately. "Everything okay?" "It will be," he typed back. "I hope." As Ryan headed for the door, he caught sight of the framed sketch one more time. He was done being careful, done being professional, done pretending his heart wasn't in Portland with a woman who'd seen past all his walls and loved him anyway. He'd let Sophie go once. He wasn't making that mistake again. Sophie left work at 6, exhausted and numb. 2 weeks in Portland felt like 2 years. The rain had started that afternoon. Typical Pacific Northwest weather, gray and endless. She hadn't bothered with an umbrella. She walked the 4 blocks to her apartment building, letting the rain soak through her coat. Maybe if she got cold enough, wet enough, she'd feel something other than this hollow ache. She turned the corner to her building and stopped. A man stood under the awning by the entrance, rain dripping from his hair, his expensive coat soaked through. He looked up as she approached. Ryan. Sophie's heart stopped, then kicked into overdrive. "What are you doing here?" Her voice came out strangled. "Getting soaked, apparently." He stepped toward her, into the rain. "I need to talk to you." "Ryan, I was a coward." The words tumbled out, raw and desperate. "I let you walk away because I was terrified. Terrified you'd realize I wasn't worth the complications. That my family would drive you away. That's what we had during those 3 days was just pretend, and you'd wake up and see the truth." Sophie stood frozen, rain streaming down her face. "But you were right," Ryan continued, moving closer. "We can't go back to being professionals. We can't pretend those 3 days didn't change everything, because they did. You did. Ryan, we agreed. We agreed to be cowards." He was in front of her now, close enough to touch. "We agreed to walk away instead of fighting for what we both wanted. And I've spent 2 weeks in hell realizing that was the biggest mistake of my life." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I love you. Not Sophie Taylor, my assistant. Not the woman who played my wife. You. The woman who drew me a picture because she saw past my walls. Who stayed with me through nightmares. Who kissed me like I was worth breaking rules for." Sophie's eyes filled with tears that mixed with rain. "Your family. My family loves you. My mother asks about you constantly. Julia calls me an idiot for letting you go." Ryan's hands came up to frame her face. "Everyone in my life sees what I was too scared to admit. That you're the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm not from your world. I don't want my world. I want you in whatever world we build together." His thumbs wiped at her tears, though the rain made it pointless. "I flew across the country to stand in the rain and beg you to give me another chance. To let me prove that what we have is real, that it's worth fighting for." Sophie's hands clutched his soaked jacket. "I'm scared. I'm terrified. But I'm more scared of spending my life wondering what if." Ryan's forehead touched hers. "Stay scared with me. Take the risk with me. Build something real with me." "What about work? The contract? The rules?" "I quit." Sophie's head snapped up. "What?" "I resigned as CEO yesterday. I'm starting my own company. Smaller, mine, not my father's legacy." Ryan's smile was tentative. "I'm done living someone else's life. I want to build my own. With you, if you'll have me." Sophie stared at him. This man who'd given up everything to stand in the rain and fight for her. "I'm still wearing your grandmother's ring," she whispered, holding up her left hand. "I couldn't take it off." Ryan's breath caught. "Sophie. Yes. Yes. Yes, I'll take the risk. Yes, I'll build something real. Yes, I love you." Sophie pulled him down, kissing him in the rain. "Yes to everything." Ryan kissed her back, lifting her off her feet, both of them laughing and crying and soaking wet, and finally whole. When they broke apart, Ryan pulled a small box from his pocket, somehow still dry. "I know you're already wearing the ring, but I wanted to ask properly this time." He opened the box, revealing a simple gold band. "Not as your boss, not as part of a contract, as a man completely in love with you. Sophie Taylor, will you marry me? For real this time?" Sophie laughed through her tears. "We were never really married before." "Then let's fix that." His smile was everything. "What do you say?" Sophie looked at the ring, at Ryan's hopeful face, at the future spreading before them, uncertain and terrifying and absolutely worth it. "Yes," she said. 1,000 times yes." He slid the band onto her finger beside his grandmother's ring. A perfect fit. Then Ryan kissed her again, and Sophie knew with absolute certainty that some contracts were meant to be broken. And some loves were worth every risk. The beach house was nothing like the Lawson estate. Small, cozy, with weathered wood and windows that overlooked the Oregon coast. Sophie stood in the kitchen, morning light streaming through as she made coffee, decaf now, and watched Ryan through the window. He was on the deck, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing animatedly about his new company. 6 months in, and Carter Ventures was already making waves. Smaller than Lawson Industries, but his. Built on his terms. Sophie's hand drifted to her stomach. 6 months along, the baby moving beneath her palm. A girl, they'd learned last week. Ryan had cried when the technician told them. The wedding had been 3 months after that rainy night in Portland. Not the Lawson estate affair Barbara had initially planned, but a quiet beach ceremony with 20 guests. Sophie in a simple white dress, barefoot in the sand. Ryan in khakis and a white shirt, looking at her like she was every answer he'd ever needed. Aunt Margaret had cried through the entire ceremony. Julia had been Sophie's maid of honor, whispering throughout the vows, "Finally, someone who makes my brother human." And Barbara had surprised them all by respecting their wishes for simplicity. She'd even admitted, later at the small reception, that watching them was like seeing what love should be. "She's awake." Ryan appeared behind Sophie, wrapping his arms around her, hands settling over hers on her stomach. "I can feel her moving. She's active this morning." Sophie leaned back into him. "How's the Singapore call?" "Successful. They're signing next week." He pressed a kiss to her neck. "But that's not important. How are you feeling?" "Good. Tired. Happy. Happy is good." He turned her to face him. "I have a surprise for you." "Ryan, we said no more surprises. You've already bought me 3 different baby books this week. This one's different. Close your eyes." Sophie obeyed, and Ryan led her to the living room. "Okay, open." Barbara sat on their couch, a wrapped box on her lap, looking nervous, an expression Sophie never thought she'd see on the formidable woman's face. "Barbara, I didn't know you were coming." "I hope it's all right. Ryan said you might like some company today." Barbara stood, holding out the box. "I brought something for my granddaughter." Sophie took the box, carefully unwrapping it. Inside, folded in tissue paper, were tiny clothes, a onesie, a blanket, small socks that looked impossibly tiny. "These were Ryan's," Barbara said softly. "The first clothes he ever wore. My mother made them by hand. It's a Lawson family tradition. The eldest son's baby clothes are passed down." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "Barbara, your family, Sophie. Really, truly family." Barbara's voice cracked slightly. "You gave my son something I never could. You showed him what real love looks like. Unconditional. Brave. True." She placed her hand over Sophie's, over the baby. "This little girl is lucky to have you as her mother." Sophie couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. Ryan wrapped his arms around both of them, and for a moment, they stood together. 3 people who'd learned that family wasn't about blood or money or expectations. It was about choosing to love, despite the complications. Later, after Barbara left with promises to visit again soon, Sophie and Ryan walked along the beach. The Pacific crashed beside them, endless and powerful. "Are you happy?" Ryan asked, his hand warm in hers. "Deliriously. You?" "I didn't know I could be this happy." He stopped, pulling her close. "Sometimes I wake up and think I'm going to be back in that penthouse, alone, and this was all a dream." "It's real," Sophie promised. "We're real." Ryan kissed her forehead. Do you remember what you said that night? In the rain? I said yes to everything. Best decision you ever made. His smile was teasing. Second best, Sophie corrected. The first was signing that contract on Christmas Eve. You mean the contract we immediately broke every rule of? We were terrible at following rules. The worst. Ryan's hand cupped her face. Thank you. For what? For being brave enough to fall in love with me. For giving me a second chance when I didn't deserve it. For building this life with me. Sophie stood on her toes, kissing him softly. You gave me the same things. They walked back to their small house as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Inside, Sophie pulled out The Little Prince, worn now from constant reading. Read to her? Ryan asked, settling on the couch, pulling Sophie down beside him. She opened to her favorite passage and began, It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. Ryan's hand rested on her stomach, feeling their daughter move. And Sophie thought about how true those words were. What she and Ryan had couldn't be seen in contracts or measured in money. It existed in the space between heartbeats, in rainy nights and vulnerable confessions, in the choice to be brave even when terrified. They'd started with a lie that became truth. A contract that became love. A pretend marriage that became the real thing in both their lives. I love you, Ryan whispered. I love you too, Sophie replied. For real this time. It was always real, Ryan said. From the very first moment. We just needed time to admit it. Outside, the ocean continued its eternal rhythm. Inside, two people who'd learned that the best love stories often start with the worst plans held each other close and prepared to write the next chapter. Together. You just spent over 60 minutes caring about Sophie and Ryan's love story. But here's what hurts. 70% of you are watching without subscribing. That means you'll miss the next story, the next emotional journey, the next ending that makes you believe in love again. Is that really what you want? It takes 2 seconds to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. 2 seconds to make sure you never miss out. And if this story made you feel anything, hope, heartbreak, joy, but you're leaving without hitting like, you're telling YouTube this wasn't worth sharing. So here's the deal. If Sophie and Ryan's story touched your heart, prove it. Like. Comment. Subscribe. Don't be the person who loves the story but does nothing to support it. Your next favorite love story is waiting. Don't miss it. Subscribe now.